Tell us about the cloud native active protection platform and how does it work?
If you think about the whole landscape of cloud native applications and especially security or cloud native application security platforms, they're all the emphasis really has been on doing one thing and one thing really well, which is how do I detect the threats and vulnerabilities in these applications? And so all the innovation you see is happening in the best engine to detect vulnerabilities, to identify threats, both at deploy time or no, at build time, deploy time, and at runtime. But if you think about the that is only part of the problem because part of the solution. For example, let's say you're finding lots and lots of vulnerabilities in your application. At the end of the day, you have a limited set of security resources who can fix those. So what happens is if you just focus on finding more threats and more vulnerabilities, but don't help your security teams figure out the prioritization, which ones to fix first, if you don't help them with remediation of the exposure, how do I know there are some vulnerabilities in my application. I just found out yesterday, how do I mitigate the risk from exposure? If you don't help the teams with that, then what you're doing is you're creating a security gap because there is research out there from IBM and from NTT that says, on an average, if you have a critical vulnerability, it's going to take you 271 days to address that vulnerability. The cost of fixing a vulnerability is really high as well. So on one hand, organizations are adopting more cloud native architectures, they're adopting open source technology. So the source of vulnerabilities and threats is increasing, but your security team, the size of the team stays the same. That's creating the gap. So what we believe you need is an active cloud protection platform, which not only detects vulnerabilities and threats, but it actively reduces the attack surface. So you're limiting how many different ways you can get attacked with zero trust principles. And then also actively remediates any risks from exposure. A case in point, Log4j vulnerability. When the Log4j vulnerability was, everyone found out that, hey, this is a vulnerability that anybody using that piece of software is exposed to. And everybody, and there was such a wide footprint of that, of Log4j. And what organizations were scrambling, while they were scrambling to fix that vulnerability, they were completely exposed to attacks. Now with active protection that we are offering with Calico Cloud, you can apply policies that'll create a security moat around those exposed pods. And so those pods are no longer reachable by outside actors. So even though the pod itself has a vulnerability, that vulnerability risk has been contained because you're drawing a security moat around that pod. And that is an example of active security in action.